Everybody, we are here with writer-director Patrick Rea, and he just released a new film called They Wait in the Dark, and that's available digitally now. So, Patrick, how are you, man?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Awesome, awesome. So can you tell us about They Wait in the Dark?
Yeah, it is definitely a suspense thriller mixed with some supernatural elements. It's about a mom and her son, and they're on the run from her ex-girlfriend, and they take refuge in her childhood home in Kansas. And while in the childhood home, she starts to experience some ghostly things happening. And so the movie is sort of I would say, a thriller where there's a threat on the outside of the house and there's a threat on the inside of the house. And so she feels very trapped and plays with, isolation and various other themes that we can discuss. But yeah, that's kind of the gist.
So, what inspired this story? You wrote and directed. So,
Yeah.
what made you tell this story?
Well, obviously it was November of 2020 when I actually started writing the script. I had a lot of time to write scripts during that period for various reasons.
A lot of people do.
And so my friend Megan Flynn, she was the producer on the film, and she reached out to me and she's like, I want to produce a movie in the summer of 2021. Here's your set budget that she's like aiming for. She's like, can you write something and tailor it to that? And I said, for sure. And I had always wanted to do a haunted house movie, but I felt like everything has been done to death. So I wanted to do something a little fresh. And so I tried to give it kind of an interesting spin where it's not just about the ghost, but also about this abusive relationship that she's trying to escape. And so, and I always tell people, like, I was trying to write a haunted house movie where it makes sense that the people stay there. Because for me, like most haunted house movies, like all the Amityville movies, I'm like, the first time I see a chair move, I'd be like, that's it, we're leaving. We're leaving. I don't know why they stay.
The first time I walk into a room of flies, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, like, I was like, the challenge was, okay, what is the house is kind of in the middle of nowhere in the country in Kansas. She's stuck there because she doesn't want to be found. So there was a little bit more for the audience to believe why she would stay there. Yeah, so I think that was basically the main thing I wanted to focus on. And I wanted to do a ghost story where it was more about what you don't see. I wanted sound design to be an important factor, and wanted to do all the effects practically, just because I feel like CGI just always takes me out of a movie, and especially if it's a supernatural movie. So yeah, and we shot the movie in 12 days. A
Wow.
very, very quick schedule. We did it in the summer of 2021 in June, and we kind of it was weird because it was like the perfect little window of time to film, because everybody had gotten kind of vaccinated and it was like, oh, okay, we're good. And then, like, literally after we wrapped, Omicron showed up and we're like, well, we found a good window of time to film our movie. And so we kept the crew to minimum. I mean, it was like maybe a little over 10 people. And kept the locations to a minimum. I mean, I tailored the script in a way that I knew that we could get it done quickly and economically, and made the only 4 main characters, which I thought was helpful. And the process of casting, I had written the script for Sarah McGuire, who plays the lead, so I had always had her in mind when writing the script. And so that actually took a little bit of pressure off, because I was like, look, I have my lead, I know she's going to do a good job. So I always had her in mind when I was writing it. And then obviously we cast all the other roles after that. So,
well, did Megan Flynn get the part of the mother because she was good or because she was the producer?
I mean, she's great. She actually, I don't know if you've seen the movie Up in the Air, the George Clooney movie.
Yeah,
she's the airline attendant or stewardess who comes up to him and says, "Do you want the can, sir?" That's her.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that funny moment with George Clooney. Yeah, that's her. No, she's great. She lives in Kansas City as well. And she and I have worked together on a number of things since like 2008. So we have a really good rapport. And I mean, for me, the process of filming this movie was fairly easy. I wouldn't say it was easy. I never say easy, but it wasn't like there was a ton of huge unforeseen challenges other than weather. because you can never predict what it's going to do in the summer. I mean, obviously, there's a specific scene in the movie where they're firing a gun, which was very, very, very stressful. And this was before Rust, and we were so careful with how we did things. But it was like 105 in the shade, and so we were all just really suffering trying to get that scene shot. And so, you know, those are the kind of things you can't really plan for. But everything else was pretty straightforward, and it was just a very comfortable, fun shoot. I know the movie is very, very dark and dramatic, but when the second we all cut, everybody was laughing and telling jokes and that kind of thing. So
That's wow. That's awesome. Awesome. Now you mentioned that you wrote the character of Amy with Sarah McGuire in mind.
correct.
What were her strengths that you were trying to lean into, and where did you take that?
I have found that she's very good at playing characters that have duality. So she's one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. But whenever I made a short film with her where she had kind of like a split personality, she did such a believable job that I was like, all right, I gotta write a feature for her as well, you know, where she's, you know, and I don't want to get into spoilers, but her character is complex, and I wanted to write something for her that was like that. It kind of gave her an opportunity to showcase, because she's done a lot of supporting roles in indie films. She's a lead in a film called Below the Fold, which was also shot here. That came out last year. That's very good. So I got to see that she had the ability to carry a feature. So I felt very comfortable working with her in that regard. And we've done all these short films together that were, you know, there's a short film I did with her where she's possessed. So I'm like, we can, I knew she was able to pull this role off. So
Awesome. You mentioned here. Where is here? Are you in
Kansas City? I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kansas City.
I've been there. I love it. It's
Yeah.
an awesome place.
Yeah.
What is the filmmaking community like out there?
It's great. You know, I always tell people one of the strengths that Kansas City has is a lot of great crew members that stuck around rather than going off to LA or Atlanta. They've stuck around and they've made Kansas City their home. They get a lot of commercial work here, and so whenever an indie film comes around, it's exciting because, you know, we don't get a lot of it here just because we don't have tax incentives. But they're working really, really hard right now to change that. So hopefully that will be something that, you know, makes a huge difference in this area soon. You know, for me, Kansas City is great because there's excitement around a film being made. There's not that people aren't burned out on the process. So whenever I go to talk to like a location, they're happy to have us. They're happy to oblige. When, you know, I bring my daughters with me because I'm like, look, you can't tell me no because you're telling them no. So can we use your diner? Can we use whatever, you know? And so
Awesome tactic.
You know, and it works. I hate to say it, it works. So I think that there's like an excitement that people still have out here, and a good portion of this movie was actually filmed in Topeka. So, you know, which is only like an hour from here. So that actually it worked out. Everybody, we all stayed in a hotel in Topeka to film the scenes that were in the house. But then the rest of it was shot in Kansas City, and then there was the gas station scene was shot in Leavenworth, Kansas, which is obviously famous for having the big prison. And so yeah, we're all over the place, but we were definitely on the Kansas, Missouri side. Because Kansas City, I don't know if people know this, Kansas City is actually split. There's Kansas City, Missouri, and then there's Kansas City, Kansas. So.
Right. Yeah, and I've been to both.
Well.
So you also had to find a really strong character or actor for Judith. How did Lori Catherine Winkel get involved?
So I've known Lori for a long time, and I lived in Lawrence, Kansas. I went to the University of Kansas for film school in the early 2000s, and I met her there. She was a very, very good actress, but I hadn't found a role for her specifically. And she kept, you know, we would message with each other off and on over the years, and she's like, hey, you know, when am I going to work with you? And so when this role came up, we were like, well, we should send this to Lori. And she had since moved to Atlanta from the Kansas City area, and she nailed the audition. And she was great. Like she and Miss Sarah have known each other, so there was already a camaraderie there. She knew all the crew members, so it was one of those things where it was kind of a family feel to the process. I mean, obviously finding an actor to play Adrian was a challenge, just because of the age and stuff like that. But Patrick McGee comes from a family of actors that are stage actors here in Kansas City. His dad is actually on that show Power. Is it Power Book? Power Book? I think it's they shoot in Atlanta. So yeah, it was great. And then we ended up casting Paige, who plays the friend. She was just somebody who we found out of the blue. She auditioned through a Kansas City agency, and when we saw it, we were like, "Oh my God, we got it! She's great." So, she was one of the newer faces that I got to work with on this project.
Sweet. So you mentioned, well, okay. First question first is what's the they in the title of They Wait in the
And
Dark?
I always, for a while there, people are like, well, it's only I don't want to give it away because it kind of is a spoiler. So they doesn't necessarily apply to the spirit. It applies to the two lead characters, and obviously the finale, which I don't want to get into too much.
Got
So
it.
they're waiting in the dark, as opposed to, so I probably just gave something away, but I'm trying to be careful not to give too much away.
Don't okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. That was my mistake for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned also some haunted house movies that just take it too far and they just don't get it right. But what were some of the things that what were some of the other titles that kind of you wanted to follow in the footsteps of? I don't want to say imitate, but which ones were the ones that you were like, no, I want this type of flavor?
Okay, yeah. There's a movie called The Dark and the Wicked that came out a couple of years ago. It was on Shudder. That really had the tone of that movie was really creepy. And it's about a mom. I think it's the devil has showed up on their basically on their property. And I don't know if you saw it, but it was from the director of The Strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie had this overwhelming sense of dread all the way through that I thought worked really well. I'm trying to think of some other movies. I mean, honestly, Poltergeist is probably my favorite haunted house movie of all time. And I always tell people it makes perfect sense why they stay in the house, because the only way they can talk to their daughter is through the television. So that actually, for me, as a story element, always worked for me. Obviously, I didn't have that kind of budget. So I was trying to, obviously I didn't have the optical effects budget for this movie. So for me, I just wanted to pattern the movie off of other ghost stories where it was more about what you don't see than what you do see. So I'm trying to think of another one that I mean, The Dark and the Wicked was one that I kept talking to people about. So I would say it was that film.
I mean, when you mentioned sound effects and atmosphere, immediately, of course, I thought of The Haunting. So
yeah, the original. Yeah, absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely.
the original.
Yes.
Yes. Because man, that one's
it's a creep. Right. And that was kind of what I kept telling people. I said, look, we got to have good sound design. This can't be something where we're going to have CGI everywhere.
Right.
All of the elements were actually on set as opposed to, later.
Well, what's next for you? What do you have coming down the pipe?
I have a couple short films. I always tell people I keep making short films in between features because I have to keep working. I like working, and for me, it's like making a feature takes so much time. It's a marathon, and you have to raise the money. So I'm in the process of pitching and raising funds for some new feature projects. And again, it's always for me, I hate saying exactly what they are, because if they don't happen, I feel like I have egg on my face. So they're always a bunch of maybes right now that hopefully we'll be filming here in Kansas City, at least one of them this year. So hopefully.
And are they staying in the horror genre, or are they?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, I have yet to find a romantic comedy idea that I like.
Well, do one in a haunted house. Come on.
There was a movie called Sorry About the Demon, I think, that was on Shudder this last month that I thought was really good and was kind of a romantic comedy mixed with horror.
Well, very good. So that's all I have right now, but Patrick, best of luck with
Thank you.
They Wait in the Dark. I would love to chat with you again on any of the
absolutely
you have coming up, or any other projects you can announce.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Perfect.
So again, thank you
All
so
right.
much for your time,
Till next time.
and have fun in Kansas City.
It's cold here right now.
Oh, it happens every year. It goes away, and then it's unbearably hot.
Kids had a snow day yesterday. Then it's you're right. Then it's unbearably hot.
But there's good food.
Basically, we have 2 good seasons, spring and fall, and it gets shorter every year.
And they're this big.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
all right, man. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Take care.